Welcome back to another edition of the Bills Film Room. I'm joined today by Mr. Erik Wood. What's going on, Erik?
Hey, Eric. Appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you taking time out of your day. I know you had said prior to going live you have a little more time, but no, I truly do appreciate you coming on. And after 120 games, 9 seasons with the Bills, you're retired now. So how do you feel now? How does your body feel? How's your health right now, Erik?
My body feels great. You know, maybe some lingering stuff down the road from my neck, maybe some of those leg breaks and ACL, but right now I feel pretty good and down some weight. So, um, I wasn't naturally 305 or 310 pounds, whatever I played at. So I'm down in the 250s, maybe around 260 now. And I feel pretty good. Currently at this time, I have some anxious feelings here and there, just feeling like it's time to go back to work, but it's not. So it's been odd making plans through August when normally it's late July, shut down till hopefully mid-February. So, it's a different feeling right now, but I'm enjoying life, enjoying some time with family and friends and doing some stuff I couldn't otherwise do.
Yeah, I'm sure with camp right around the corner, and you're so used to reporting the Fisher, I'm sure you're getting some of that anxiety and some of that anxiousness that as you mentioned of let's get back to work. But I'm sure it's going to even heighten as the season progresses and as week one progresses upon us. But you had mentioned your playing weight. You said you're down to 250, 260 now. When you were playing and during your career, now were you the type of guy, the type of offensive lineman that had to eat to maintain weight, or did you have to lose, or did you have to cut to maintain weight? You seem like the type that had to eat to hold that weight on.
Yeah, I was constantly crushing calories. I try to eat healthy because it's this balance of okay, I don't want my body to feel like trash from filling it with a bunch of junk food, but you need a certain amount of that to be able to keep the weight on. So I kind of had a certain balance of that going, but I had tried to keep on weight for so long that it was just eating patterns that I was used to. Towards the end of my career, I didn't have to think about drinking a shake before bed. That's just what I did. No matter if I was, you know, out to a late dinner or whatever it may be, I would have took to keep the weight on. So, starting whenever I found out my career was over, I had to reverse a lot of the eating patterns. Just I don't have to walk to the pantry before bed at night. I don't have to head in there straight in the morning and grab some calorie dense breakfast and fill myself up before I work out. And that was kind of a weird transition just because since I was probably 16 when I was trying to put on weight for football, I'd always been doing that kind of stuff.
When I saw pictures of you, in how you cut weight right after retirement, I wasn't surprised because you seem like that type. How many calories were you consuming a day?
It's hard to say because I wasn't necessarily counting them.
Okay.
Depending on the day, I would say probably around 4,000 or so. But not a majority, a good amount of those coming from shakes, supplements, bars. Just snacking on stuff between meetings at night, just to keep the calories up. My meals were big, but they weren't enormous. It was just about eating um, all throughout the day to really just keep the calories constantly coming in, which now at this stage of my life, one, I don't want to revolve my life around where my next meal is coming from or what time. So one, from a convenience standpoint, that's better. And two, I'm not eating for performance anymore.
All right. So I want to get into a few questions in regards to your career and just, things that have transpired over the course of your 9 years in the league. So obviously last year, 2017, you guys made the playoffs. You ended the drought. In your final season, you helped them obviously end the drought. And I'm sure it had to be, an overwhelming feeling for not just you, your teammates, but your family as well. So kind of talk about that and how much it meant to you ending that drought for Buffalo.
It meant a tremendous amount. I honestly had nightmares about retiring and not ever getting the Bills to the playoffs. I came in kind of right in the middle of that drought. I'm not responsible for the whole thing, but I was there for a good part of it, and I felt that pressure. I felt it from fans, and I felt it personally. And when I re-signed before the season last year, part of the reason I re-signed is I couldn't ever walk away from Buffalo and then break the drought and it not me not being a part of it since I
Right.
had put so much blood and sweat and tears into trying to win games and trying to get that franchise back in the right direction. Part of the reason I was so anxious to resign and not try and hit free agency for the first time in my career was because I wanted to end that drought. So it was special. I can say it now that I'm retired. I'll never win a Super Bowl as a player, but man, we felt like we won the Super Bowl and we celebrated like it that night.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I mean, not just the players and the organization, but us fans. I mean, we honestly have been waiting a long time, but it almost was like winning the Super Bowl, and it's something that we've carried obviously this off season, and hopefully the team can build upon that going into the next season. But I want to look back at your analytics, your 2017 Pro Football Focus analytics, because analytics have become such a big part of the game, but I'm sure you know analytics have really been around internally for teams for many years now. It's just becoming more public because of companies like Pro Football Focus. So I'm looking back at 2017. PFF charged you with 3 QB sacks, 3 QB hits, and 14 QB hurries. I'd like to hear your opinion on analytics, especially because as a former offensive lineman, it's one of the most controversial positions and units in offensive line altogether when it comes to analytics, because it's just so hard to not only chart but to grade. So I want to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah, I mean, first I'll start off by saying I appreciate what they're doing for the game. Um, a lot of fans tune into Pro Football Focus. That helps grow the game. It's valuable, and I see the value in it. I see why fans are all about it. I see where the niche is for this company and other analytics sites, and you know, in Buffalo, Joe Biscaglia does his grading system. So there's a lot of people trying to grade it. It's just really tough with offensive line play because they don't know our assignments. You know, it might be, for example, a couple years ago we played Indianapolis in the opener, and I was on a man block, and Richie lost his guy inside. I tried to go after his guy. It ended up being a TFL. That guy made the play,
Right.
and me and Richie were joking about it after the game. You could joke about these things after we beat them. That I was going to get credit for that. Like, our coaches knew it wasn't my fault, but like nobody else, when they saw me lunge at that guy late to try and like stop that TFL from happening, like we both knew immediately. Like PFF and Joe, they were both going to credit me for that TFL. And and as a player, you just have to trust that the GM and the coaches, it's their opinion that matters. It's the opinions of the guys around the league, you know, for pending free agents and whatever. But yeah, it's tough sometimes. You know, I remember it was probably 4 or 5 years ago now. They had me rated as a 28th best run blocking center in the NFL, and I can assure you, our coaches and front office didn't feel that way. But
That's all that matters, right?
yeah, and then I would see it pop up on the Bills website. I'm like, you can't put that kind of stuff on our website because that's promoting it like it's our own coach's opinion. You
Sure.
know, so it's tough as a player at times, especially for O lineman. But I do see a lot of the value in it. I mean, some of the work they do with um, catch percentages. Well,
Sure.
I mean, that's easy, you
Right.
know, and when they're grading, you know, even sometimes like QB accuracy can be tough, you know, and they do their adjusted accuracy, but you don't know if a young receiver ran a wrong route or however it may be. It's tough for them to do it. But I do appreciate some of it.
Yeah, I mean, you spoke of those other positions. I feel like there's a smaller variance, because it's a little more out in the open. You know, maybe the route concepts or just little things like that. But I'm with you. I use analytics every day, but it's only a piece of the puzzle. It's only part of the context when trying to break down film, because obviously I'm not in the meeting room with you guys, so I do the best I can. To not only supplement the film with analytics, but I try to keep it general. I don't like pinning things on guys like yourself. If there was a sack, so I take it with a grain of salt. But internally, who does the grading for the offensive lineman? You don't have to say the name per se, but I mean, is it an assistant coach? Is it the offensive line coach? Who does the grading internally? Because I remember, for me being a former running back, our running backs coach always graded us after every game and even practices too. So, what type of system do the Bills have set up for you guys?
Yeah, so after a game, our offensive line coach Juan Castillo and his assistant, they'll both grade us, and then we'll get feedback from there. And I know that they'll have a staff meeting where they break down each individual performance of the game, and Juan will explain, because a personnel guy in the front office, he might not even know the assignments on the plays specifically. He
Sure.
knows what we're trying to run, but he
Right.
might not know the specific game plan for that week. And one instance that I see on film that I know that analytics people struggle with is like a guy will lose a pass pro inside. Well, he might be funneling a tackle might be funneling that to the guard, and the guard's eyes are in a different spot, and that guy runs free. And I just know that there's no way that
Yeah.
analytics guy would have known that. And there's no way of me blaming the analytics guy for giving the wrong person the sack, but like internally, that's the guard's fault, and we
Right.
recognize that with the Bills. And that's sometimes where you see, man, how did this Pro Bowler get released by this team? Or how did Pro Football Focus's top 10 guard or tight end not make the team this year? Well, internally, they knew exactly what that guy was supposed to be doing each day.
Okay, so let's shift gears here. Let's look at 2018. Obviously, the offensive line is being rebuilt, and we're going to see that, come Thursday at camp. How much of an uphill battle, especially, trying to replace you, who was a centerpiece for many years in there, and we're going to talk about the center's responsibilities in our film breakdown. But how much of an uphill battle does this offensive line have this coming season? Not just replacing you, but Richie, because I mean, you guys were mainstays the last few years.
Yeah, and Cordy as well. And Dion did a great job filling in for Cordy last year. But Cordy, when healthy, is a lockdown left tackle. He makes an offensive coordinator's job easy a lot of times by not having to game plan for um, who Cordy's going to be blocking on the edge. But
Sure.
it's always tough replacing guys like that. But they did it with experienced players. I'd be a lot more concerned if Dion didn't have any experience. If John Miller, who it appears will be filling at left guard, didn't have experience, and then Bodine started all of his games in Cincinnati, and Groy played well in spot duty for me, and he also played well in spot duty a little bit at guard for Richie.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm not as concerned just because all those guys have experience, but man, new offense, new O line. It might take them a little while to gel. I hope it doesn't. Being that I'm a Bills fan now and
Yeah.
an alumni, I hope it doesn't take them long to gel. But I can just see, man, sometimes I know how hard it is sometimes to transition to a new offense, and then sometimes working with new guys can make that even tougher.
No, definitely. And I think fans need to temper their expectations, especially when it comes at offensive line and the offense as a whole. Because, like you said, new coordinator, new system, probably some new concepts, new schemes, new techniques. It's a overhaul. And then you add in the quarterback position, and like I said, new center. You're not there anymore, so there's a lot on the offensive, line and the quarterback's plate this year with all the changes on the offensive side of the ball. Now, let's talk quickly about Ryan Groy. Obviously, you know him really well, and maybe you could comment on Russell Bodine if you have any experiences with him, or and maybe what kind of offense he played in over in Cincinnati. I mean, these two guys will be battling for your former position. So, what are your thoughts on that competition?
The thing that sticks out to me most initially is that Groy has experience at guard. Sometimes they want to keep those guys as swing guys so that if they get in a pinch in a game that they could play center or guard. Now, I say you let the best man win and let them battle it out during training camp. Bodine played in an offense in Cincinnati that was balanced throughout his career. It's not like he comes over from a exclusively wide zone offense where some of those guys are kind of niche players. He's a real football player. He played in a real system in Cincinnati on offense. So I think he can transition to this system as well. I just know that Groy has uh, played really well. And I know that for the last few years, he played so well in practice that I always felt like I needed up my game, which was very valuable for
That's
me.
great. Yeah.
So I'm excited to see who wins. But I just know the value Groy has a swing guy, and I hope that doesn't hurt him in this battle because sometimes if there isn't depth behind those guys, they'll worry about who could fill in at either guard or center because you only dress 7 O linemen on game day.
Yeah, and that's one thing that fans don't really take into account when they're projecting these lineups. It's the staff and the organization is trying to look at the big picture. If someone else goes down, who's going to be that guy to fill in? Well, Groy again, he's played pretty much every position along that offensive line, and he filled in admirably. For you a couple years back. So
Hmm.
that's going to be a competition that I know a lot of fans are looking forward to. Based on social media, I know a lot of them are pulling for Groy, and I can't blame him because, like I said, we have tape on him, and he's been here for a few years, played in a few different systems, and has been working hard. So that said, let's shift gears here. Let's get some questions from some of the fans here. We'll do a little rapid fire. So, what is your least favorite defensive front to run into, and why?
If we're running into it, probably the bear only because it's tough sledding inside. I mean, when you get a bear front, you probably have one or two runs you like against that a week per week, and otherwise you probably should just get to a pass. You generally know they're in man defense. It's that old 46 defense that Buddy Ryan made
Right.
famous, where you just cover everybody up inside. You got the linebackers sitting behind them. It's tough to get to them. So probably the bear, even though we exposed it at times throughout my career.
Yeah, and just a little tease, we're going to break down a play here in a few minutes with a bear front from the Jets. So, next question: your most difficult defensive lineman to block and why?
I get asked this a lot, and it depends on pass and run. Um, One of the toughest dudes at the run game is probably James Harrison, who was with the Jets. Now he's with the Giants.
Yeah.
He's stout. You're not going to move him. Probably not even on a double team. He's smart. He plays tendencies really well. You'll see him see a backfield shift, and he'll move his stance, and you're thinking, great, he already knows what's coming on. So I think he's excellent in the run game. For passing situations, a lot of times they'll try and expose a center. They'll line up in a front where they can try and get a center one on one. They did it with J.J. Watt in Houston and Aaron Donald a little bit. I mean, those
hmm
guys are probably top of the game when it comes to interior rushers. Um, for me.
Now we're talking about pulling and getting into space. Obviously, something you did really well over the course of your career. What is there a difference in approach if you're pulling, to kick out or log a defensive end out in space versus working a combo block on an inside zone play and then climbing to the second level and picking up that linebacker? Is there a difference or an approach or a skill set, in your opinion, on the two different blocks?
Yeah, for sure, man. Center pulling from the center position takes a lot of work. I mean, when you think about it, we have our feet parallel to each other. A lot of the guards and the tackles will have them staggered, where you can open your hips a little easier, you can get out and move a little quicker, and to be able to snap from a parallel stance, drop back, and get back behind your guards. A lot of times, if you'll see me right before a play I'm pulling, I might remind Richie or Vlad or John, hey, move up just a touch for me. But man, pulling is pretty tough from the center spot. My approach when I'm going out to kick out a guy, on the end, man, that's such a quick snap decision. If he gets up the field at all, I got to put law, or we kick him out. And if
hmm
he jets into the line at all, we call that logging him. So I'm going to just kind of wheel my hips on him. Inside, generally, if I'm approaching a linebacker, it's generally on a zone play. I know where that guy's got to fit based upon his technique or his assignment within the defense.
Sure.
So I generally know where he's going to be. And if he pops the gap or does something goofy, Shady's going to expose him. So I always think it's a lot harder pulling, but it fit my skill set and it was something I could do to kind of show off my skill. So I always enjoyed it.
And I love that you mentioned that because I mentioned, the log or the kick out block as a center or a pulling lineman altogether. There's so much processing that goes on. It's not just, executing the actual block, but it's, reading that defensive end or, pass rusher's leverage and just adjusting your assignment to what he's doing. So there's so much thinking on the fly. And that's something why, and a reason why I brought you on, because I want to focus on that when we get to the film, because so much of your game, especially being a center, was mental. It was it was a mental game, and it always is for centers. And you have a lot of responsibilities. So I'm glad you brought that up. And final question: how do your responsibilities change as a center when blocking for a veteran QB versus a younger QB?
I always had more responsibility with younger QBs. When I had Tyrod or EJ or any number of the guys that I was up front, that weren't veterans, I would handle a lot of the responsibilities. When we get to the film, you'll probably see it in my communication. I'm handling a lot of that at the line, but I like that. That gave me more value, especially towards the end of my career, that I was able to do all that stuff. But earlier in my career, I learned from guys like Fitzpatrick and Orton when he came in. Some quarterbacks don't want me to say a whole lot. They want to run the show. They don't want me to switch a blocking assignment and then them not know exactly where they're hot. And then other quarterbacks would rather just let me handle it all. Just trust in me that I'm not going to leave them hung out there and then just let them go rip the ball around the field. So I definitely had more responsibility with some of the younger quarterbacks.
So, speaking of responsibilities, we're going to jump into the film room to highlight some of your responsibilities as a center prior to the snap and how it can affect the play. So, let's go ahead and jump in. All right, so the first play is going to be an outside zone run. It's from week 1 against the Jets. The Bills are up 2 points in the fourth quarter. And, we're going to go over some of the, pre-snap communication. That's going to be the focus of this film breakdown. And so I want you guys to listen in as best you can to the calls that are happening from Erik and obviously the quarterback in this run play.
Couple of one-yard touchdown passes by Buffalo quarterback Tyrod Taylor. You start the fourth quarter. Second down and 9. McCoy hits the hole hard, breaking tackles and into the secondary. Screen down.
All right, Erik. So outside zone run play, explosive run by Shady. But I want to go over some of the communication that occurred on that play. So as you break the huddle, what are you first looking at as you head up to the ball to set the ball?
So we had 2 plays called in the huddle here. One we liked against Bear, and the other one we didn't. We had something strong called here. I know it because we can to a weak side outside zone. If you see Jamal Adams down strong, depending on where he was at, we were probably going to go away from him. So we might have left the play up even versus Bear if he was weak. But
Okay.
we know we definitely like our numbers to the weak side here better. So first, I'm identifying Bear. That lets the line know that we're all covered up inside, and also Tyrod know, hey, where's the safety? We're probably going to get out of this play and get to the next play. So we go. So Tyrod communicates can. That lets everybody know we're going the other way. The play call in the huddle might be inside zone strong, can outside zone weak,
Okay.
with a lot more verbiage. But in a nutshell, that's how it would sound. So after we communicate the can, I'm then letting the backside guys know, hey, we're all covered up. Now we have a 3-man combination, me, Cordy, and Richie, nose guard, backside defensive tackle, to Davis, their middle linebacker. And so on an outside zone, especially weak with Ely 94 sitting so far outside, we know we're not going to reach him.
Right.
That's going to end up being essentially a kick out. Everybody else wants to get their guy running as far as we can, and we want to make it a really tough read for Davis, and we're hoping that he misses it. Richie does an awesome job. I kind of just get the nose running flat here. Richie throws him by. Davis fits it strong, and Shady does an awesome job of just taking that. We call that the jump cut, and he hits it extremely well there.
I want to talk real quick. Outside zone is usually 3 reads. You mentioned Ely pre-snap. That's pretty much taken away with how wide of a technique he's playing there, right? That bounce is pretty much eliminated. So Shady's working inside there. He sees, probably sees Wilkerson here. He's got his outside hand free, has leverage, and then he's moving inside to the nose tackle and the linebacker here. And you do a great job on this combo block on this nose tackle. Can you kind of talk about this technique you use? Because you get them running, but then you hook with your left. What kind of technique is it there?
Yeah, so I'm going to show him a play side hat. So I'm going to get my helmet on his outside. Basically, that makes him have to stay in relation to me. Now he's trying to fight back outside, because if I just hook him right there, Shady can make that cut. Now with me all the way over there, now Davis is feeling, okay, McClendon got reached. Now I have to get to that A gap. Well, I'm not going to let McClendon get back in that backside A gap, so I just hook him under his arm, which you're never going to get called for a hold there. I would just,
Right.
if a ref said anything to me, I would say he was holding me, but I would just hook him under his arm there. So now I'm just dragging him with me, with Davis fitting in that play side A gap to allow that cut to happen.
Right. And so if Davis, you could see him trying to fill that A, if he were to come downhill, obviously it'd probably be your pickup, right?
Yeah, and with me all the way on that side of McClendon, I know Shady's cutting behind me there. I would
Yeah.
just end up throwing him by. At this point, my big thing is I can't let McClendon get back into the play.
Okay, so that's front side. Let's talk about backside real quick. Now, Cordy and Leonard Williams are going at it here on the backside. Now, I know on outside zone and in Dennison's system and the Gibbs Shanahan, tree coaching tree, they like the cut backside. Well, Cordy doesn't cut here. Whose decision is that? Is that his call, or is that something maybe he got chewed out for on Monday in the film session, or whose decision is that?
They probably wanted him to cut here, and he didn't. In Cordy's defense, he hadn't practiced a whole lot in the preseason, so he didn't get all that cut block work that we all got
True.
with all the practice time. He was still rehabbing his foot. So when he was in this game, man, he was just honestly out there grinding it out for us and appreciate his effort. But yeah, he's kind of essentially doing the same thing. He's trying to get Leonard either cut off, or keep running him. And when he gets Leonard running here, well, Leonard hesitates for a second because he feels Cordy pushing on him, and then Shady's able to hit that, and then Clay makes the huge block on Adams, and that these blocks on the backside often go unnoticed. But this is why we've when we had Roman's offense and we led the league in rushing those 2 years in a row, it was blocks like Clay's right here that allowed us to rush for 200 a game as opposed to 140, because these blocks are just so crucial. And that could have been a 6-yard gain and everyone would say, man, that was a great run. It becomes 25 because of Clay's block.
Yeah, especially on a run filler, an athlete like Jamal Adams. Obviously, he was drafted high for a reason. So for him to take the proper angle, use a proper leverage, and get a piece of Adams so that Shady could clear, I mean, that is a big play. And I'm totally in agreement with you when it comes to the last few years and the run game in Buffalo. A lot of it had to do with not just the offensive line and the coaching there, but these tight ends have been fantastic over the years for LaShawn McCoy.
And if you notice right here, we also got Andre Holmes all the way down the field, and Jordan Matthews over there. We have both of our receivers downfield trying to spring them for touchdowns. It's effort like that you don't necessarily see on every team. And we also got another one out there. I mean, that's effort that honestly you don't see on every team throughout the league when you turn it on Sundays or on Monday and Tuesday. When we're watching film, we don't always see that kind of stuff. But when we lead the league in rushing, it's examples like that, and that's the reason why.
Yeah, it's very selfless play by Holmes, Matthews, and Zay Jones down there blocking for Shady. So those are the type of plays. Again, you mentioned it. When you look at the film again, you're going to have this receiver group and these tight ends making a difference for Shady. I know Shady gets a lot of the credit when it comes to production, but I'm sure he'd be the first one to tell you, hey, thanks for blocking downfield and doing what you can so that you could spring him. So. All right, the next play on the docket is a 3rd and 14 play from the Bucs game, with you guys up 4 points in the third quarter, and it's another explosive play from Tyrod Taylor to Nick O'Leary. So let's listen into the comms that happened on this play, because it's a really good back and forth between you and Tyrod Taylor. So let's listen in.
3rd and 14, third quarter, winding down.
Hey, bad. Watch, easy, 3 jet. Good.
Tyrod Taylor gets out of the crowd and open on the sideline for a first down catch. Nick O'Leary.
All right, Eric, so let's walk through that. We're going to start off with you initially coming to the line of scrimmage, and I want to talk about what you mean by 4 down. Let's keep it simple for our fans and then break it down. So what's 4 down when you're coming to the line of scrimmage?
So this is a third and long. 4 down is alerting the offensive line, the running back, and the quarterback, knowing that there's 4 defensive linemen in the game. Against the Buccaneers, at times they would run 3 down linemen on third down. So first off, I'm alerting, hey, we got 4 D linemen in the game. The next thing I'm alerting is that this is a double A gap look. In this look, 51 is considered a down lineman.
Okay, all right.
I'm saying here, it's a double A gap look. They both are inside backers walked up in the A gap. We start out in a 2-jet protection. When we get to double A, it's all game plan specific. It doesn't necessarily mean a traditional 2-jet slot. Half the line slides one way, the other side's got man, and the running backs got the other way. We kind of made our own rules week by week. But Tyrod, by going 3-jet, and checking to that, is now saying, hey, I want you guys to go to this edge defender that's outside of 51 out there. So I want the line, the center, right guard, and right tackle to slide to the right. You're going to take 3 of those 4 guys over there.
Mm-hmm.
Other side block man on the defensive lineman. And then Shady's got 58 back to an edge defender that would be coming off outside of Jordan Mills. I start off by saying bad. That we end up making calls. This is our 6th game of the year, 10th if you count preseason. We end up, early in the year, it's L and R words, Lucky, Ricky. Those would be slides one way or the other. Well, teams pick up on those pretty quick. Good and bad, those are a little tougher for them to pick up. So bad was a half slide to our left. Good was a half slide to our right here. I'm very comfortable saying this kind of stuff with a new offense. I would have had to doctor this a little bit if Coach Dennison was still there. But I'm saying good after Tyrod gets us to the 3-jet to alert the guys that we're going to then slide out to the right.
Okay, so let me backtrack a little bit. You had mentioned that you guys designated this linebacker as a defensive lineman, right? So that's what you mean by 4 down, right? You have these 4 down linemen right here.
Yeah, that's the young kid.
Beckwith.
He was a draft pick out. Yeah. So he was coming in to rush the passer, and with this type of spacing, with the 2 D tackles lined up over our guards, we were calling that a 4 down look. If McCoy was right over the top of me, I might have called it a 3 down look just to get to those types of rules because it might have benefited us. But here, I wanted to get us into our 4 down rules. And then ultimately they don't end up bringing pressure here.
Right.
But anytime you could slide to Gerald McCoy when you're playing the Bucs, it ended up working out perfect. If I was the Bucs, I would have put that edge defender opposite of McCoy every time because then you're always going to pretty much slide your line to that edge defender. I would have put him opposite to get those guys one-on-one against McCoy and 51 over there.
In the huddle, you guys had called a jet protection. It was 2-jet initially, right? So real quickly, if it's 2-jet, rather than sliding to your right, you would have had the linebacker right here, right?
Yeah, I would have had that A gap right there.
A-gap,
so if 58 dropped and the D tackle spiked in, yeah, I would have had the A gap that way. And on the right side, they would have been manned up over there.
So then if you had slid left there, obviously Tolbert's going to be filling right here in this A gap, and then probably pretty much are we man blocking over here on McCoy and Beckwith?
Yeah, so Tolbert would check 54 to that edge pressure outside to anything that could come back out to our left as well. He's kind of scanning, but his immediate threat is 54 right in that A gap because if David fires there, he's got to be ready to pick him up.
Okay, and this is what I was talking about in communication between the center and the quarterback, because obviously when you guys got out to the line, you called 4 down lineman, double A gap, double mug look from the Bucs, and they brought this extra edge rusher, the safety, down into the box, and that's when you give the bad call. And so then Tyrod, with that pressure come off the edge, changes the protection, as you mentioned, from 2 to 3 jet. So you guys slide in the opposite direction. We talk about what's the easy call, because that's something you hear a lot on Sundays. What's the easy call that Tyrod gives you guys?
Generally, easy is just alerting the guys, hey, chill out for a second. Don't be triggered up because we might be on a quick count here, and he's going to say, easy. Like, I'm not about to say set hut. I'm probably going to switch the call, or I just want to look at it further. And here he wanted to switch the call.
And that's what's, great about, the communication between you and Taylor on this play. Obviously, he changes the protection. You give the confirmation with the good call. But talk about 2 and 3 jet protection. It's a pretty simple protection when you look at it on paper. But fans don't understand is just because you run 2 or 3 jet protection and it's just, a nice 6-man protection, 5 linemen, and a running back, it can be blocked up a multitude of ways based on the defensive front, right?
Absolutely. And it can be – a lot of it in the NFL just becomes game plan specific. I mean, you have elite defenders. So if they were in a vanilla look right here and it was 2 jet and I knew that there was no pressure coming at all, I would probably have the freedom to flip it to give me the slide to McCoy so we can get a double team there, and I'd put Tolbert back the other way. One,
Sure.
That's going to help him probably get out and get us an extra receiver out. And 2, it gives us a double team on their best rusher. So, I mean, we could call 2 jet in the huddle, and it just never looked like it throughout a game based upon, hey, they might fire a linebacker that's over the running back all the time. So this is 2 jet protection. The running back's on Tyrod's right. Well, if they are going to fire David to keep Tolbert in the whole game and make him block one-on-one, well, I'll just make 2 jet, 3 jet myself, give Tolbert the communication, and he just knows he's going opposite.
Now, we see O'Leary kind of check release here. He helps out Glenn out wide. How do the tight ends know that they're chip releasing versus just running out into a route? Is there a certain call for the tight end to let him know that he's chip then releasing?
Yeah. So we'll tag this a chip. So it's generally going to be the opposite, the running back. So, here Tolbert could essentially help out if someone got beat quick right, and then Nick's going to give this chip help on the way out. And now the only guy that's one-on-one is Richie, and we're pretty confident in Richie in most matchups. So everybody else essentially has help across the line. And on 3rd and 14, if you're trying to make a play down the field, that's how you have to do it in the NFL. We're not going to win 4 one-on-ones up front, without any chip out. And the way it works out well is Richie gets pushed back a touch here, while with double teams and chips everywhere else, Tyrod's able to maneuver around the rest of the garbage in the pocket pretty easily because there's only one guy one-on-one.
As you mentioned, Tyrod is, he's Tyrod on this play. Richie does get bull rushed a little bit into his face, but everyone else pretty much secure. Tyrod is able to elude that defender, and he just makes a special play, something that he's done for many years for the Bills by getting it to Nick O'Leary for the explosive play down the field.
This was a huge play for us, only up 3 points or whatever we were.
Right.
That's a big play at that time of the game. And on 3rd and 14, you're not thinking – your conversion rate throughout the NFL on 3rd and 14 is super low. That was a huge play.
Yeah, that's Tyrod at his finest, using that, mobility and he's just a playmaker, man. You put the ball in his hand, he's going to make plays, and he's something he did for many years for the Buffalo fans. So. All right, the next play we're going to break down is another play from the Bucs game. You guys are down 3 points a little earlier in the game, second quarter, with a 3rd and 8 situation here. And I want the fans to listen in to the communication from Erik, because, again, he's identifying the front and setting the play on this 3rd and 8.
Down.
Hey, Tolbert remains in. They need 8.
February.
Taylor. And the catch made coming back to the football. A sure-handed grab.
So in this look here, we're not necessarily looking for a Mike call. So This is one of their 3-down looks that I had mentioned in the previous clip. It essentially ends up being 4-down spacing if you count David as a D lineman over Groy here. And then with the guy walked up right over me, they've essentially created a bear front. Well, we're able to go 5-0 here. If you say 5-0 in the NFL, a lot of teams will recognize that they know we're all one-on-one poker of that call. So poker. When we came up with it, there's five card stud poker, 5-5-0 poker. So
Okay.
that's where we got the call poker. And so I'm letting the guys know that we're one-on-one up front. I don't think that there's going to be any other exterior. There's not going to be two other exterior rushes. So I know that Tolbert will be able to pick up if they fire the other backer or one secondary player, he'll be able to take them. So I was confident that we could go on, make a poker call here and be all picked up. And then the February is letting everyone we're on 2. If you heard in the clip, Tyrod said, green 80, said, hut. So we're on 2 there. And the February call is essentially if you say, man, every team's got them. They got,
Yeah.
Some guys will just say dose, anything 2. February obviously is the second month of the year that
Sure.
alerted us it was on 2. And then that's another one of those calls where you obviously – this is a TV copy. Every team in the league's got people watching TV copies for calls. So that's one of those that you got to switch up pretty often. But this early in the season, we were still using February. And also I'll mention, I won't always alert the linemen on 2. They're in a goofy look here. If they lined up in a 4-down front and they were just going to straight normal rush the passer, I wouldn't have alerted everybody who was on 2. But anytime I have to make a different call, they're in a goofy look. Well, I don't want anybody forgetting about the snap count if it's not on 1. So that's why I'm alerting everybody February here.
Okay, so you had mentioned Tolbert. So you guys are you're 5-on-5, and you have Tolbert as the help. From the look of it, it looks like they're basically in man coverage. And this linebacker, as you mentioned, would probably have Tolbert, and this DB is going to have the tight end here. So it looks like man coverage, and that's what happened on the outside. You got one-on-one Deontay Thompson against their corner. Tyrod does a good job of delivering it. But the actual February call, it helped you guys here because it essentially gave you a free play, right? Because this, you'll see as we let it roll, this defensive tackle here ends up jumping off sides.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why we're going on 2 on 3rd down. We want to get 2 shots at it if we need it. And so we that's essentially why we're doing that. Teams often against us would put a guy right over me. Some teams they'll do that to free all the other guys up one-on-one. For me, a lot of times it was a spy on Tyrod. So they'll put an athletic linebacker over me. I can tell right here, we call it a sugar rush, where he's just trying to get me occupied.
Yep.
That's why I'm trying to go help out where I can quickly, because I know he's not rushing, he's spying. So immediately when I see him just kind of stutter his feet, he's either going to make a rush move outside around, or he's just spying Tyrod. So that's why I'm looking to help back to Vlad, and then I know I had time to get back to him.
Yeah, and you guys set a really nice pocket here on the outside. You have some really nice vertical sets by Glenn and Mills, and it's a really nice deep pocket, which is what Juan Castillo loves. He loves those vertical sets. He loves having you guys, keeping you guys inside, be aggressive inside, have nice long sets by the tackles, so that Tyrod could step up on this play, and Taylor does a really good job of just climbing the pocket, setting his feet, and delivering to Deontay Thompson. As you said, with that spy, and that's one thing that going into 2018 that Bills fans are have to keep an eye on is, a lot of teams, like you mentioned, like to play spy against Tyrod Taylor in the last few years, and that essentially would take guys out of coverage. So that's something that's going to be new to this. I'm sure the offensive line is going to have to adjust, and the new quarterbacks are going to be have to adjust to this.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think any of those 3 guys are going to warrant a spy. None of them terrible athletes, but nobody like Tyrod, knowing that you're truly worried about a game-breaking play. I always joked Tyrod could rip off, a great rushing game in the NFL is probably over 120 yards. He could get a third of that in one play if they didn't spy him. So, I see the value in it for teams putting a guy like Quan Alexander here over Tyrod, even though if Tyrod gets loose, I don't even know that just him on the spy defeats that.
Oh no, I mean he did it time and time again, especially last year, where you guys needed to play on third down, and yeah, maybe the receivers didn't get the separation they wanted, maybe the concept didn't work like the staff wanted, and Taylor was just able to make plays. A few of those plays, kind of off the top of my head, in Atlanta. I mean, down in Atlanta in that environment and those linebackers, and he was able to make a lot of those guys look silly by pulling the ball down and running. But here he does it with his arm. Really good pocket presence, climbs the pocket, delivers it outside to Deontay Thompson. Again, a free play. You see the flag there. It was a free play. So that February call definitely helped you guys out. I know he completed it, but you guys would have had a second shot, as you mentioned.
For sure.
So that does it for the film session between Eric Wood and myself on the few plays from his final season with the Buffalo Bills. So your career's over now, Eric. What's next for you?
I'm not sure yet. Right now, I'm just enjoying being a dad, being a husband. I own a gym in Louisville. I spend some time up there helping out with that. I'm on a couple different boards, and I still have my foundation board and my foundation going in Buffalo. So I have plans already to be back for 3 home games this year. I'm waving the flag at the Tennessee game, the second home game of the year. I'm going back for a alumni weekend, which is weird to say, for the Monday night game when they're honoring Thurman. And then we're going to do my flights and bites after the Jacksonville game in November. And I think we're going to try and do the Christmas shopping with the kids and everything after that game. So minimum 3 trips already up there. Hit some Louisville games. One of my buddies' sons is committed to Ohio State. I told him I'm going to hit Ohio State, Michigan with him.
Awesome.
So, we'll see. But we'll see. And, coming up shortly, I got a spot on Good Morning Football I'm going to do in a couple days, and just kind of get my feet wet and possibly get into the media world, the broadcast world. But right now I don't think I'll be calling games this fall, but maybe something that's an option down the road.
Well, that's great to hear. I mean, I saw some of your spots on local radio on your Twitter timeline, and, it wouldn't surprise me, man. Obviously, you're well-spoken. You did some of your little training with us in this film session. I do appreciate you coming on, but I'm sure we're going to bump into each other at, some of the games or even events around town. But I appreciate you coming on, Eric, and hope that, your second career is as good as your first was.
I appreciate it, man. And I've always appreciated your work. You could tell you work your tail off on the breakdowns. We appreciate that type of effort. Just keep doing your thing. I look forward to following you and definitely meeting up down the road.
I appreciate it, man. You have a good day, brother.
Yep, you too.